Hello, I'm Lindsay Sisk and welcome to the Marriage Challenge podcast brought to you by Care for the Family. In this episode we're joined by Steve and Lesley Hayes, who are going to talk to us about overcoming past hurts and how they learned to deal with some of the baggage brought into their marriage from previous relationships. But first, let me introduce them. Steve and Lesley have been married for over 25 years. Steve is a retired Human Resources Director and Lesley has recently finished working for the Hospital Education Service, where she was a support worker for teenage pregnancies. Between them, they have 4 children and 4 grandchildren. So, Steve and Lesley, welcome. It's great that you could join us.
Hi.
Thank you. What we'd like to know first of all is, how did you two meet and end up getting married?
Well, I'd been on my own for about 3 years. I was already divorced. I had a little boy, Jay, who was 4 years old, and I was a sales manager for a contract catering company, and I had a really great appointment at a very big factory in Birmingham, where Steve was the personnel manager and actually the person that I was going to meet. And I went into this appointment and I saw Steve standing in this open plan office with really twinkly eyes, and my heart constricted and I found it quite difficult to get the words out. So that was how I first met him. And then, because this was a contract that was very complicated, there was lots of catering issues, and we had to meet several times during the course of understanding all the figures I had to quote, and we just got to know each other really well.
In terms of today's topic, dealing with past hurts, I just wanted to ask you, can you tell me a little bit about your background stories, really?
I'd been married previously for 9 years, and it had been a challenging time. As a child, I never managed to really please my parents, and I had the same concerns about trying to please my first husband, and I didn't seem to be able to do that. So I was not a very confident person, but I became an angry person. I was angry with him and angry with myself and angry with the situation. And I'd been married to him for 8 years before we had a child. My husband had already met another person and was quite deceitful about money and where he was. He would go away for days and days and I'd never know where he was. But having a child gave me strength to get out. But I was an angry person and I had failed and I knew I'd failed. So that was really my baggage.
That must have been really hard. And how was it for you, Steve?
Yeah, I think I go back quite a long way really, because I lost my father when I was 3 months old, and mother eventually remarried, but was a very busy lady. She ran a hotel business, and I felt that I lacked a sort of deep relationship with my parents. And not surprisingly, therefore, I got married quite young, in my early 20s, and that went well to begin with, and we had children, but gradually probably through lack of communication, I would say, and we began to fall apart. But I decided to hang on into that marriage mainly because of the children, for as long as possible. And gradually I began to find out that my wife was having affairs. I can remember packing my bags up and driving away from home, and I think the whole way I just was in tears and I cried the whole journey, because I suppose I felt in many ways I'd failed. I mean, not only failed myself, probably failed my wife, but particularly the children. At the time I didn't have a faith, and therefore I was very self-sufficient on myself to get through life, and it was tough.
And in terms of then for your relationship, when you got together and got married, what impact did some of these past hurts have on your relationship?
So, to begin with, in the euphoria of being married, we had a couple of years, good years. I carried my anger with me and my feeling that, I wanted to make a success of this and do things as well as I could. And so after a couple of years, we really almost fell apart. We had a very bad year. We couldn't communicate very well without there being an argument. There was a tremendous strain on the marriage because we weren't having much quality time together with young children, busy jobs. And I think I probably drove Steve away because I was frustrated. I didn't see enough of him. I wanted to see more of him. I was constantly tired and constantly pushing myself. And again, it was I was failing.
And I was, started a new job as personnel director of a big engineering business in the UK. Therefore, the hours were long, particularly to begin with. And you get to the stage where something replaces marriage, where in this instance, I sort of, to a great extent, I began to work long hours, and perhaps I didn't need to do so. But when you come home and you know you're going to argue, you have the fear of opening that front door and thinking, oh my goodness me, what's going to happen? I've been in conflict all day in the nature of the work I've been doing. I'm going to face conflict at home as well. And therefore, I escaped at weekends to play golf. And because I wasn't well received at home, because there was a lot of arguments happening, and because we were unhappy together, we found ways of going our separate ways.
What was the catalyst for change for you? At what point did you realise something needed to change, and how did that come about?
There came a time on the eve of our 3rd wedding anniversary, and we always ate together and we still lived together as such, although we were clawed on the edge of the bed and not touching for a year. I just said at the dinner table, and I don't know where it came from, I'm really sad about the state we're in, and I'm really sorry, and I know you're unhappy, and I'm deeply unhappy, and I wish we could do something about it. And Steve immediately replied, well, so do I. And I don't know why it had taken us a year to say that, but it was out. And so from that moment, we resolved we'd make a really special effort. And really it did, and it meant relearning, really stripping things back and going back to the very beginning and being the people we wanted to be and not letting our differences get in the way. And so we just tentatively took baby steps to getting back together and to start going out, to start dating. We'd never really been out, so we employed a babysitter, and it probably did take the year, but at the end of that year we were in such a strong and amazing position that we felt really very blessed and very fortunate, and we were so glad that we had got stuck in and worked through things.
But they were very tentative steps to begin with. And so much was learning, I believe, to be kind to each other, to be friends again, and to take those first tentative steps of trying to build a relationship.
The thing is, you have chosen your partner for the rest of your life. You enter into this with full commitment to making a go of it. And you've got to get back to that first love. You've got to find that first love. And we can all be super good at looking at things that are wrong in our partner. And when you just pick a speck, it becomes a boulder. So the most important thing for us was that we focus on all the good things, the things we first fell in love with, the things that attracted us. And by focusing on the good things and choosing to ignore the things that irritate or minor faults that we all have, then it changed the whole perspective on our relationship. Without doubt, it made things a whole lot easier, to walk forward, being committed to seeing the good in each other.
So now, sort of 25 years on, what does married life look like for you today?
So we've tried to, looking back, and I think this has helped in many respects, so we've both got a strong faith, and we've tried to put something back into marriage through being able to relate our experiences to both marriage preparation courses and marriage courses, and latterly to running a Restored Lives programme for divorced and separated couples. And that has helped in itself, because by doing those courses it actually keeps you fresh. And I think it also keeps your marriage fresh and alive, because you keep on learning and relearning the tools and the principles that make a marriage successful.
The other thing is, you can't encourage a young couple that you're sitting with to have date nights and how important they are unless you have them yourself. So you're absolutely right, it keeps you on your toes and it keeps all these principles fresh. But I think we felt that, because we had we'd overcome our difficulties and we had grown in love, and love is organic, it grows and it gets better. And we just felt so enthused that we wanted to encourage people to stick at marriage, however tough it is. And sadly, there are some marriages that do fail, and that's very understandable. But where you can, to stick at it and work through the differences you have. And we just felt that we wanted to pass that message on because it worked for us, and therefore there was a chance that it might work for other people as well.
No, that's really encouraging. And just thinking, there are probably people listening to this podcast who may be married and going through a really challenging time in their relationship. What advice would you give to other couples who are going through a particularly testing time in their relationship?
I think one of the areas that we found very useful is this whole concept of love languages. It's a book written by a guy called Gary Chapman, and he concentrates on 5 areas: acts of service, gifts, physical touch, quality time, and words of affirmation. And the view is that each person has one of those as a main love language, and it's learning the love language of your partner. So, for example, Lesley's love language is quality time. It's called a language because it's actually having to learn that. Because I was brought up in this hotel environment and was pushed aside at weekends and such like, I was never given any quality time, and therefore I'm not used to giving anybody else quality time, and therefore you have to actually learn this language.
The other thing I think that helped us was we learned that you must consider yourselves always on the same team, the same side. Therefore, any differences you have, it's like when you're sitting together on the sofa, sit close together, and the differences are the cushion, and you don't let the cushion go between you. You take the cushion out and put the cushion on the floor. Those are the differences. Those are the issues to talk about. And then talk about those without letting them drive a wedge between you. And we've tried to model that, and it's such a graphic way of dealing with things that we've always held at, that we can't let anything, we mustn't let anything come between us. Life is tough, but it's better to deal with it. The two of us are better to deal with it than on our own.
And I think also it's not accusing each other. It's not saying you did this, you did that, but I feel upset, or because. And I think those words, it's being kind to each other. I think that's absolutely critical. And I know it's a cliche, but it's being best friends as well. And it's working on that. So important to be kind to each other. It's absolutely critical.
And the thing is, so often that our nearest and dearest see the worst of us. And they're the last people, actually, that you want to show your worst side to. So, as Steve says, it is so important being kind, and from my point of view, it is so important just to think before you open your mouth in reply to something. And once you get into the swing of things, then it's amazing how it stays with you. You can walk it out when you've set yourself those little guidelines. And life is good, and we're very blessed. We have lots of friends, and we do have a great marriage. And it does get better and better.
That's lovely. Thank you so much for sharing with us and being so candid and honest and sharing from a real place of pain as well as the good things. So thank you so much for sharing with us. One thing I wanted to ask before we finish, in every episode of the Marriage Challenge, we ask our guest couple to share a practical challenge that couples who are listening can perhaps try at home. Do you have a marriage challenge that you can share with us today?
Yes, I think I'd like to refer again to love languages. And I think I'd like to encourage couples to understand their love language, their main love language in particular.
And for me, I think what really helped us was having a date night. It just means setting time aside, ring-fencing that time, letting nobody take that time away from you, and just spending time talking heart to heart about things that you're enjoying doing, things that you would like to do, what your aspirations are, but just having time to value each other and to make it as regular as possible. It really helped us.
Well, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. And they're really practical things that people can do. So that's all for this episode. It just leaves me to say thank you, Steve and Lesley, for joining us. And we look forward to tackling another marriage challenge next time. Goodbye.
You have been listening to the Marriage Challenge podcast. For further information about our courses, resources and events, visit us at www.careforthefamily.org.uk.